Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a special edition of the Cast, and that is because there's no guest with me. And I know for some of you guys that think, well, the guests are the best part, and that is true. But there's been some stuff going around that I feel like, as a Catholic podcast, we should address it. And so it's been a whirlwind kind of following this. And if you are in the social media realm, you probably know a little bit about what I'm talking about, and that is the Harrison Butker commencement speech. Now, we're going to dive into this, but first, I want to remind you guys that we are on the road to 500 subscribers, and each day it's just growing by 3 to 5. It's slowly adding and adding. So be part of that first 500. We're at like 131 currently, so hit that subscribe button and like these videos. Comment whether you hate it or like it. Comment because it helps send it into the algorithm and spread just what we're doing here and help spread the channel, spread joy um, through the intercession of St. Philip Neri. So let's jump into this. I am going to be sharing my screen. We're going to be kind of listening to the whole commencement speech, pausing it, making comments. Obviously, want to try to point out maybe where people are getting so frustrated about it when I don't think they should be. Most of the people I've seen making bad comments about it seem like they didn't even watch the speech. They probably listened or read an article and they just made these wild assumptions and then just ran with it. Um, so we're gonna jump into it, and I would just ask that you guys maybe listen to the speech or this episode or whatever with an open mind. I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm not here to just berate someone for their beliefs, but I am here to be a Catholic man with Catholic values, observing another Catholic man with Catholic values, speaking at a Catholic college, but hopefully try to make sense of that to some people that maybe aren't Catholic, maybe don't share the same values. My goal would I'd love it for everyone to change their mind and agree with it, but my goal is not necessarily to just say, "See, told you, you're wrong, we're right, you should believe us." But my goal is to open your mind to it, or at least to open your heart to it, to where you don't get so mad about it, because this is not anything to get mad about. Don't waste your energy and your time. Don't lose your peace over this commencement speech. I promise you, it's not worth it. So I'm going to share the screen. I don't know how it's going to go. We may have some technical difficulties. Danny McKay, remember, we're going to hire you as soon as we can to do all the tech side because I am not the best. But I'm going to share the screen and then we will get right into it. I did a test run. I believe everything should be working now, but let's do this.
Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, I would like to start off by congratulating all of you for successfully making it to this achievement today. I'm sure your high school graduation was not what you had imagined, and most likely neither was your first couple years of college. By making it to this moment through all the adversity thrown your way from COVID, I hope you learned the important lessons that suffering in this life is only temporary. As a group, you witnessed firsthand how bad leaders who don't stay in their lane can have a negative impact on society. It is through this lens that I want to take stock.
Now, first things first, it's a Catholic person going to have more conservative values. So, yes, you can assume he's talking about the president, the vice president, all those people. But if you're gonna have to keep an open mind, I want to keep an open mind. So I'm gonna say that he's talking about all leaders, all political leaders, no matter what the case is. Like, they all should be doing what's best for the people. And you guys know politicians are never going to do that. So I think so far it is still talking generally about just bad leadership. There's bad leadership on both sides. I think everyone would agree. Bad leadership on both sides that is leading the country into a bad spot. So let's continue.
Of how we got to where we are and where we want to go as citizens and, yes, as Catholics. One last thing before I begin. I want to be sure to thank President Minnis and the board for their invitation to speak. When President Minnis first reached out a couple of months ago, I had originally said no. You see, last year I gave the commencement address at my alma mater, Georgia Tech, and I felt that one graduation speech was more than enough, especially for someone who isn't a professional speaker. But of course, President Minnis used his gift of persuasion and spoke to the many challenges you all faced throughout the COVID fiasco and how you missed out on so many milestones the rest of us older people have taken for granted. While COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policy.
One thing real fast, in the college ministry, we talk about this all the time at St. Philip Neri. This is completely off subject. Pray for your high school and college students. They went through their most formidable years during COVID, and it just completely screwed them up. For some of them, not in a bad way. I'm not saying like they're all messed up and they're all like, there's some obviously very normal people. But if you think about it, like sometimes some of them haven't been on a date. If they're like freshmen in college, maybe they haven't even been on a date because of COVID. COVID made all the social distancing, lockdowns, everything. Pray for the students. Off topic. Let's get back to it.
Policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally.
Okay, whether you like Biden or not, you support him or not, whether you're Catholic or not, you cannot do the sign of the cross and be an outspoken Catholic and be pro-choice. They literally are oxymorons. They don't exist. You can't have them together. So yes, little jab at the president. I would make the same jab at the president as well. You can't be pro-choice and Catholic.
He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. You know, the difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be
Real fast. So he mentions the lockdowns and the administration behind the lockdowns, everything. One of the comments in one of the videos I shared was talking about you realize the lockdown started during Trump's presidency. They did. And again, we could have bad leadership on both sides. I don't think he should have caved and ever done the lockdowns. But I think what they're talking about is maybe like the pressure. Again, I'm not in the political atmosphere. I'm not in that. It's the pressure to do the lockdowns and the fire that Trump was under to do the lockdowns. I think maybe is what he's talking about. But you guys comment below because I don't. I'm not going to say that I know much about that and who initiated what. But yeah, the other thing. Nope, I just ran blank. He mentioned something else. It'll come back to me. But let's keep on.
men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act.
That was it. So he mentioned being Catholic is not enough. Being Christian is not enough. We talk about this all the time on the internet. Sola fide, saved by faith alone. And I think the biggest thing behind this is we get comments all the time that Catholics believe you must earn your way to heaven, and that's not the case. We don't believe we can earn our way to heaven. We can only get into heaven by God's grace. And this is my understanding. I am not an apologist. I am not a theologian. I don't have any background. I'm just a Catholic guy who loves his Catholic faith. But faith without works is dead. So there's that part in the Bible. That's always brought up though. But the one thing that I've always heard is that to believe in Jesus, to believe in God, to believe in the gospel is to not just believe, is but the actual translation it was to believe and obey. So as the faith was to believe and obey. And so that's where the stuff comes from when Catholics start talking about these sacraments, when we believe in Jesus Christ and that he died on the cross for our sins and he opened the gates to heaven and he laid out a plan for us on how we can get to heaven, but we are under our own free will to choose that way or not. He laid out, like some in the comment section, we talked about confession. He laid out confession for those whose sins you forgive are forgiven, and those who you retain are retained. He gave them the power to forgive sins, but he didn't do that so that they had the power to send people to hell or heaven. He did it to show mercy on people. And so that's just an example. Again, not a theologian. Don't quote me. Well, you can quote me on what I don't care. Quote me on that part though. I'm not a theologian. Let's keep going though. But that's what he means by being Catholic alone is not enough. Being Christian alone is not enough.
in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice. It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it. As members of the church founded by Jesus Christ, it is our duty and ultimately privilege to be authentically and unapologetically Catholic. Don't be mistaken, even within the church, people in polite Catholic circles will try to persuade you to remain silent. There even was an award-winning film called Silence, made by a fellow Catholic, wherein one of the main characters, a Jesuit priest, abandoned the church and as an apostate, when he died, is seen grasping a crucifix, quiet and unknown to anyone but God. As a friend of Benedictine College, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron said in his review of the film, "It was exactly what the cultural elite want to see in Christianity: private, hidden away, and harmless." Our Catholic faith has
So that's another thing, and I've heard this from Christians and non-Christians, is that believe what you want as Catholics, believe what you want as Christians, but you don't have the right, or you shouldn't be putting it out there or talking to people about it or forcing people to believe what you believe. Amen. We shouldn't force people to believe what we believe, because that's not love and that's not free will. But to say that we shouldn't be out there trying to evangelize and trying to get people to heaven, that's kind of the enemy working.
always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to her teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority. Congress just passed a bill where stating something as basic as the biblical teaching of who killed Jesus could land you in jail. But make no mistake, before we even attempt to fix any of the issues plaguing society, we must first get our own house in order, and it starts with our leaders. The bishops and priests appointed by God as our spiritual fathers must be rightly ordered. There's not enough time today for me to list all the stories of priests and bishops misleading their flocks, but none of us can blame ignorance anymore and just
Thank you, God, for giving us Bishop Condola in the Diocese of Tulsa. Thank you so much. He's amazing. Anyway,
blindly proclaim that that's what Father said. Because sadly, many priests we are looking to for leadership are the same ones who prioritize their hobbies or even photos with their dogs and matching outfits for the parish directory. It's easy for us laymen and women to think that in order for us to be holy, that we must be active in our parish and try to fix it. Yes, we absolutely should be involved in supporting our parishes, but we cannot be the source for our parish priests to lean on to help with their problems. Just as we look at the relationship between a father and his son, so too should we look at the relationship between a priest and his people. It would not be appropriate for me to always be looking to my son for help when it is my job as his father to lead him. St. Jose Maria Escriva states that priests are ordained to serve and should not yield to temptation to imitate lay people, but to be priests through and through. Tragically, so many priests revolve much of their happiness from the adulation they receive from their parishioners. And in searching for this, they let their guard down and become overly familiar. This undue familiarity will prove to be problematic every time because, as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt. St. Jose Maria continues that some want to see the priest as just another man. That is not so.
was that a Taylor Swift quote? I don't know. I'm not a Swiftie, but I feel like that was a Taylor Swift quote. Maybe that's why everyone laughed.
They want to find in the priest those virtues proper to every Christian and indeed every honorable man: understanding, justice, a life of work, priestly work in this instance, and good manners. It is not prudent as the laity for us to consume ourselves in becoming amateur theologians so that we can decipher this or that theological teaching, unless, of course, you are a theology major. We must be intentional with our focus on our state in life and our own vocation. And for most of us, that's as married men and women. Still, we have so many great resources at our fingertips that it doesn't take long to find traditional and timeless teachings that haven't been ambiguously reworded for our times.
Okay, so we're about to get into it, the part that made most people mad, but he's prefaced it, and he's about to get into it, that he's going to be talking about the vocation, the purpose that God put us on this earth as husbands and as wives. So the specific roles that He has put us on this earth for, and so this is where the fork's going to happen, where people are going to be like really loving the speech or really hating it.
Plus, there are still many good and holy priests, and it's up to us to seek them out. The chaos of the world is unfortunately reflected in the chaos in our parishes, and sadly, in our cathedrals too. As we saw during the pandemic, too many bishops were not leaders at all. They were motivated by fear of being sued, fear of being removed, fear of being disliked. They showed by their actions, intentional or unintentional, that the sacraments don't actually matter. Because of this, countless people died alone without access to the sacraments, and it's a tragedy we must never forget. As Catholics, we can look to so many examples of heroic shepherds who gave their lives for their people, and ultimately, the church. We cannot buy into the lie that the things we experienced during COVID were appropriate.
So that's a tough one, and I'd have to ask somebody about that because, like, I had that thought as well. Is that during COVID and the lockdowns, like, shouldn't the church just be like, no, sorry, we're going to do this, even if we have to go underground, we're going to have to do this. But say in an ideal world, would every priest and bishop have done that? And then realistically, if they would have done that, would most or all of them been arrested and put behind bars for doing this? So I don't know. That one feels like a little bit of a slippery slope. Maybe is that the term? But like something that I don't like. I could still see going either way. But again, I'm not a theologian. I'm not a saint or God, so I don't know. Maybe we do get to heaven one day, and He's just like, I can't believe you guys did this. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to ask Gerald about that one.
Centuries, there have been great wars, great famines, and yes, even great diseases, all that came with a level of lethality and danger. But in each of those examples, church leaders leaned into their vocations and ensured that their people received the sacraments. Great saints like St. Damien of Malachi, who knew the dangers of his ministry, stayed for 11 years as a spiritual leader to the leper colonies of Hawaii. His heroism is looked at today as something set apart and unique, when ideally, it should not be unique at all. For as a father loves his child, so a shepherd should love his spiritual children too. That goes even more so for our bishops, these men who are present-day apostles. Our bishops once had adoring crowds of people kissing their rings and taking in their every word, but now relegate themselves to a position of inconsequential existence. Now, when a bishop of a diocese or the bishops' conference as a whole puts out an important document on this matter or that, nobody even takes a moment to read it, let alone follow it. No. Today, our shepherds are far more concerned with keeping the doors open to the chancery than they are with saying the difficult stuff out loud. It seems that the only time you hear from your bishops is when it's time for the annual appeal, whereas we need our bishops to be vocal about the teachings of the church.
Let's say it again. Thank you, God, for Bishop Condola. I don't know which diocese he's talking about specifically, but yes, if the bishops are not there and not present and there, and you have access to them, like that sucks for you, and they should be like that. Bishop Condola is everywhere all the time here in Tulsa. I don't even know how he does it. It's wild. And he also has the Tulsa Times podcast, and the purpose of that podcast, talking with Derek, the host, well, I guess both of them, him and Bishop, but was to give more access to Bishop and his thoughts. So you guys check that out, the Tulsa Times podcast. I'll put the link in the description below. It's just a great resource to hear what Bishop Condola has to say about certain teaching of the church or what's going on in the world. It was great. I got to be on it when we talked about the Fiducia Supplicans document. So check that out. I'll put in the description below.
Setting aside their own personal comfort and embracing their cross. Our bishops are not politicians, but shepherds. So instead of fitting in the world by going along to get along, they too need to stay in their lane and lead. I say all of this not from a place of anger, as we get the leaders we deserve. But this does make me reflect on staying in my lane and focusing on my own vocation and how I can be a better father and husband and live in the world, but not be of it. Focusing on my vocation while praying and fasting for these men will do more for the church than me complaining about her leaders. Because there seems to be so much confusion coming from our leaders, there needs to be concrete examples for people to look to, and places like Benedictine, a little Kansas college built high on a bluff above the Missouri River, are showing the world how an ordered, Christ-centered existence is the recipe for success. You need to look no further than the examples all around this campus, where over the past 20 years, enrollment has doubled, construction and revitalization are a constant part of life, and people, the students, the faculty and staff, are thriving. This didn't happen by chance. In a deliberate movement to embrace traditional Catholic values, Benedictine has gone from just another liberal arts school with nothing to set it apart to a thriving beacon of light and a reminder to us all that when you embrace tradition, success, worldly and spiritual, will follow. I am certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people like those here at Benedictine wouldn't be met with anger, but instead met with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the
Now that's obviously going to rub people the wrong way, but it's true.
Holy Ghost to glorify him. Reading that article now shared all over the world, we see that in the complete surrender of self and a turning towards Christ, you will find happiness. Right here in a little town in Kansas, we find many inspiring lay people using their talents. President Minnis, Dr. Swafford, and Dr. Zimmerer are a few great examples right here on this very campus that will keep the light of Christ burning bright for generations to come. Being locked in with your vocation and staying in your lane is going to be the surest way for you to find true happiness and peace in this life. It is essential that we focus on our own state in life, whether that be as a layperson, a priest, or religious. Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, you are sitting at the edge of the rest of your lives. Each of you has the potential to leave a legacy that transcends yourselves and this era of human existence. In the small ways, by living out your vocation, you will ensure that God's church continues and the world is enlightened by your example. For the ladies present today,
Here we go. This is the part.
congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
So that is what made people mad. And that's what people said. Harrison Butker said women should stay at home and have kids and not go into the world in the workforce. He starts the entire sentence with, a lot of you guys are thinking about the promotions and the titles you'll have going on. Some of you might even go on to lead, not work for, but lead successful businesses. But I think that, whatever, I don't know, quote, but I think you guys would be most excited for your vocation. Your vocation, because it is God, family, business, whether you're male or female. He is mentioning that the women, I bet, in a whole group of Catholic women, that they're most excited for their vocation of getting married and having kids. Because if you're not going to religious life, then you would be called to marriage and have kids. I mean, there probably maybe another different ways or whatever. But the majority of people would be in that. So he is not saying here that women should not work. No, he's saying the opposite. A lot of you guys will work, but I bet you are most excited for your vocation.
I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
And then that word right there, that just does not make people happy. Homemaker. Whether you're working or not, as a wife, you are a homemaker. Like you're the one that makes the house a home. Me and my wife always talk about how like I may be the CFO, but she's the COO, and we're both the shared title of CEO because we're equals, we're side by side. But I may be more in charge of the income and the finance side, but she will always be in charge of the operations and how the household runs and everything. It's just how we're designed. That's a lot of clapping for people who like our homemakers.
She's a primary educator to our children. She's the one who ensures I never let football or my business become a distraction from that of a husband and father. She's the person that knows me best at my core, and it is through our marriage that, Lord willing, we will both attain salvation.
That's another one there too. That's where they said that, like, again, Catholics said that they have to earn heaven. To combine together, we can earn our way into heaven. But he said obtain doesn't necessarily mean earn, but that is your goal as a married couple is to come together to become closer to God together, to help each other get to heaven, help each other become saints. So Catholic teaching on that.
I say all of this to you because I have seen it firsthand, how much happier someone can be when they disregard the outside noise and move closer and closer to God's will in their life. Isabel's dream of having a career might not have come true, but if you asked her today if she has any regrets on her decision, she would laugh out loud without hesitation and say, heck no. As a man who gets a lot of praise and has been given a platform to speak to audiences like this one today, I pray that I always use my voice for God and not for myself. Everything I am saying to you is not from a place of wisdom, but rather a place of experience. I am hopeful that these words will be seen as those from a man not much older than you, who feels it is imperative that this class, this generation, and this time in our society must stop pretending that the things we see around us are normal. Heterodox ideas abound even within Catholic circles, for let's be honest, there is nothing good about playing God with having children, whether that be your ideal number or the perfect time to conceive. No matter how you spin it, there is nothing natural about Catholic birth control. It is only in the past few years that I have grown encouraged to speak more boldly and directly, because as
Catholic birth control belongs in the same category as Catholic and pro-choice.
I mentioned earlier, I have leaned into my vocation as a husband and father and as a man. To the gentlemen here today, part of what plagues our society is this lie that has been told to you that men are not necessary in the home or in our communities. As men, we set the tone of the culture, and when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the US, and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. I speak from experience as an introvert who now finds myself as an amateur public speaker and an entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be when I received my industrial engineering degree. The road ahead is bright. Things are changing, society is shifting, and people, young and old, are embracing tradition. Not only has it been my vocation that has helped me and those closest to me, but not surprising to many of you, should be my outspoken embrace of the traditional Latin Mass. I've been very vocal in my love and devotion to the TLM and its necessity for our lives. But what I think gets misunderstood is that people who attend the TLM do so out of pride or preference. I can speak to my own experience, but for most people I have come across within these communities, this simply is not true. I do not attend the TLM because I think I am better than others, or for the smells and bells, or even for the love of Latin. I attend the TLM because I believe, just as the God of the Old Testament was pretty particular in how he wanted to be worshiped, the same holds true for us today. It is through the TLM that I encountered order and began to pursue it in my own life. Aside from the TLM itself, too many of our sacred traditions have been relegated to things of the past, when in my parish, things such as Ember Days, days when we fast and pray for vocations and for our priests are still adhered to. The TLM is so essential that I would challenge each of you to pick a place to move where it is readily available. A lot of people have complaints about the parish or the community, but we should not sacrifice the Mass for community. I prioritize the TLM even if the parish isn't beautiful, the priest isn't great, or the community isn't amazing.
This is where you start to get in with like the faithful Catholics now starting to have differing opinions. So talking with some friends who had seen this speech, this is where they started to obviously part ways because yes, the Mass is the most important part. Whether the priest gives amazing homilies or is great after Mass and great with kids and whatever, that doesn't matter. The the Mass is the most important. But there's also other things that are really important as well, and community is huge. Here in the Diocese of Tulsa, in our group, we have such a massive group that keep each other faithful, and um, choosing a place that doesn't have that, I believe, is risky. But again, I'm not speaking from a representing the Catholic Church, just representing myself and what I kind of see, and kind of what I've talked about with my friends. But this is a part that where people split, and I would actually be really interested to talk to someone more about what they thought about it, like a religious life or something.
Still go to the TLM because I believe the holy sacrifice of the Mass is more important than anything else. I say this knowing full well that when each of you rekindle your knowledge and adherence to many of the Church's greatest traditions, you will see how much more colorful and alive your life can and should be. As you move on from this place and enter into the world, know that you will face many challenges. Sadly, I'm sure many of you know of the countless stories of good and active members of this community who, after graduation and moving away from the Benedictine bubble, have ended up moving in with their boyfriend or girlfriend prior to marriage. Some even leave the church and abandon God. It is always heartbreaking to hear these stories, and there is a desire to know what happened and what went wrong. What you must remember is that life is about doing the small things well, setting yourself up for success, and surrounding yourself with people who continually push you to be the best version of you. I say this all the time, that iron sharpens iron. It's a great reminder that those closest to us should be making us better. If you are dating someone who doesn't even share your faith, how do you expect that person to help you become a saint? If your friend group is filled with people who only think about what you're doing next weekend and are not willing to have those difficult conversations, how can they help sharpen you? As you prepare to enter into the workforce, it is extremely important that you actually think about the place.
That's kind of him going thin and saying the importance of community. So uh, I love that he does address that, like the community of faithful Catholics around you, faithful people, helps sharpen you. So iron sharpens iron. Love that. So glad he does address it afterwards.
Places you are moving to. Who is the bishop? What kind of parishes are there? Do they offer the TLM and have priests who embrace their priestly vocation? Cost of living must not be the only arbiter of your choices, for a life without God is not a life at all, and the cost of salvation is worth more than any career. I'm excited for the future, and I pray that something I have said will resonate as you move on to the next chapter of your life. Never be afraid to profess the one holy, Catholic, and apostolic church, for this is the church that Jesus Christ established, through which we receive sanctifying grace. I know that my message today had a little less fluff than is expected for these speeches, but I believe that this audience and this venue is the best place to speak openly and honestly about who we are and where we all want to go, which is heaven. I thank God for Benedictine College and for the example it provides to the world. I thank God for men like President Minnis who are doing their part for the kingdom. Come to find out, you can have an authentically Catholic college and a thriving football program.
Hey, and kudos to the Kansas City Chiefs for coming out and supporting him. Andy Reid came out and even though he didn't agree with some of the stuff he said we support him. We judge him off his character, off his person, and what he does on the field. We're not going to be like let something like this ruin it. Then you had like Patrick Mahomes say the same thing. I've known this guy for 8 years. He's one of the best guys I know. I may have disagreed with some of the stuff. Even Travis Kelce said I may have disagreed with everything he said, which is just so hard to believe that you could disagree with everything he said. But even him who said I disagree, he says I disagree with most or everything he said or something like that. And even him was like, I back him for having his beliefs. Something he does off the field, something he does this. He has the right to his own beliefs and stuff. So kudos to the entire team for coming out and supporting him, and especially the wife of the owner, who not only came out and supported him, but didn't come out like that, saying I don't agree with him, blah blah blah, but came out and corrected people, saying he did not degrade women, he did not say these things in media, saying, and we 100% back him. He will be back this next season.
Make no mistake, you are entering into mission territory in a post-God world, but you were made for this. And with God by your side and a constant striving for virtue within your vocation, you too can be a saint. Christ is King to the heights.
All right. So yeah, like I said, just so good. Such a great speech. Um, I'm not going to sit here and say like I don't understand why people got so mad. That's so dumb. I understand why that would have rubbed someone the wrong way. Um, but what I would say to people is you listen to it with an open mind. Don't let someone say you've got to listen to this speech. It's the worst thing ever. He degrades women. Blah blah blah. So you go into it thinking I'm going to hate this guy. This guy's about to say so much dumb stuff, and then you just go into it because then you are going to hear that. Go into it with an open mind, listening to what he has to say, but also listening to the context. As Christians who maybe didn't like what he said about things, listening to the context of a Catholic man speaking Catholic values at a Catholic college to a Catholic community, to hopefully send them off into the world to continue their Catholic values and to grow a Catholic family. We shouldn't have been so surprised that he said some of the stuff he said. It's the exact reason why, like, if I'm going to listen to a speech that someone gives at a pride parade, like, I shouldn't be mad when they start speaking all these things. I'm like, why could they say, how could they say this stuff? It's like, well, it was at their event, at their thing. I don't agree with what they said, but why would I let myself lose my peace over that? And so overall, we live in a world where we shouldn't let things like this completely run our life and help us lose our peace. Because whether you disagreed or agreed with it, there are people all over the country that have lost their peace over this commencement speech. People that disagreed with it, obviously for obvious reasons, just lost their cool and just like, oh, I saw one lady, I think she's here from Tulsa, and she called him a white supremacist. What do they call they have a religious word too, but white supremacist, evangelical Christian like threat or whatever. They're like such threatening words that it's just so uncalled for and just not true about the man. But then you have people that agreed with him completely, that they're losing their peace because they're seeing people speak out like this and getting mad at the people that are having these views. This is kind of why like I can't really watch much of like the Daily Wire anymore, just because it's kind of tough to follow these people that just get so angry about these people having these beliefs. When in reality, I think that it should make us extremely sad. I'm sad for these people um, that think that these traditional values are just absolute trash. It should make us sad to see people that are so distant from God, um, that they would have this kind of reaction to a video like that. So, Harrison Butker, congrats, man. That was a great speech. Loved it. I don't think you'll ever see this video, but that's okay. Um, I would literally give it a 9.2 out of 10. Obviously, just one or two things that I would just want more clarity on of like what you meant. Mainly, obviously, the TLM. For you guys, I don't know if you actually said it, but traditional Latin Mass. TLM versus Novus Ordo. Obviously, there's always that debate within Catholics. But overall, such an amazing speech. My very first time hearing it, I was just blown away. I was like, this is great. I didn't actually think it would get so much reaction, especially because it was at a Catholic college. This is at like some big public university, like or whatever, like University of Alabama. Then obviously I'd understand people getting upset, but because it's at a Catholic college, I'm surprised it got as much light as it did. But I know that that's God's providence, and that so much good will come out of this. And congrats to Harrison Butker for being the number one in jersey sales, specifically women's jersey sales over the past month or so. That is amazing. That right there shows you guys where everyone's actually at. The loudest will make it seem like the world's against him. The loudest will make it seem like the Chiefs are going to fire this guy. But I don't know. Money speaks for itself right there. So like, I think more people support this than you think. I pray that you guys continue to have courage to be faithful to your beliefs, especially those Catholic values. Stay true to those, no matter what this world um, says. You're going to be persecuted for it. You're going to be called some of these names, and you're going to have to be able to brush it off. When someone attacks, you turn the other cheek. You respond with love. You respond with prayer in your private time, and yeah. But you guys have a great time. I knew I wanted to do this response video. I did have a little bit of a minor surgery last week, so it kind of pushed this off just a little bit. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that maybe someone listened to this with an open mind, and if one person listened to this, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I still don't agree, but I'm not as mad. Like I thought he was saying something else. Then that means we did our job. I say we. I did my job. I guess there's nobody else here until Daniel gets hired. But hope this helps. We're super excited that you guys are part of this family. Continue to help us get to that 500 subscribers. So you guys hit that subscribe button today. Share this video. Share it on your social medias. That also helps as well. Leave that like and comment, especially if you are in support of Harrison Butker. Comment with the Go Chiefs. Comment with an amen. Comment with something that will send this out to the algorithm. It is a new age way, unfortunately, of spreading the gospel, spreading joy through this channel. And we are appreciative of you. We are looking forward to another episode. We're actually filming today again with Tara Wright, who's got an amazing story, and that'll be posted tomorrow as normal on our Thursday morning posts. But other than that, you guys have a great weekend and God bless.